once the move of Colorado going to the Big 12 becomes official today, what are the potential ripple effects going throughout the college football landscape, according to Pete Thamel of ESPN? Welcome to episode 279 of College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our ever-growing channel. Smash that like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. Let's not waste any more time. We're not going to go through the whole article. We're going to go through a lot of it. If you want to read the whole article, go to the link in the description box below. Pete Thamel, ESPN, the great writer. With Colorado initiating the process to leave the Pac-12 and join the Big 12 for the 2024-25 season, it marks a significant ripple in the college athletics as the next phase in realignment. Here's a look at the biggest questions for both leagues and what's next on the landscape in the wake of Colorado's looming departure. What's next for the Big 12? The league is now slated to have 13 teams for 2024-25. It would make sense to add another in time for the 2024 football season. Where will that team come from? And could more than one be added? The preference of the Big 12 would be one of the Pac-12's other so-called four-corner schools, Arizona, Arizona State, or Utah. According to sources, Arizona has been the most engaged among those three schools. As we reported here at Peek Around the Corner, they've been on the edge of the stage. They've been one arm length away from Colorado at the center of the stage. Arizona right now is at the center of the stage at the Holy Smokes Theater. Back to the article. But virtually every school in the league has had some kind of contact with the Big 12 as the Pac-12 has spun its wheels on landing a television deal for nearly a year. It would be fiduciary negligence to not explore other options. Arizona decision making will be made more through the prism of basketball than most power conferences schools, which would make a move to the Big 12 more attractive. Pac-12 basketball has been significantly weakened with the loss of USC and UCLA, and the Big 12 has been the country's top basketball conference in recent years. There's no question about that. Arizona President Bobby Robbins has maintained publicly that no decisions will be made until there's clarity in the Pac-12's television deal. That will be put to the test after Colorado's decision. As for the television payouts, we've talked about this at Peek Around the Corner. Pete Thamel, along with Brett McMurphy and others, reported that Colorado is expected to join the Big 12 at the pro rata basis, which is an average of $31.7 million in television revenue over the course of the league's new deal starting in 2025. Additional schools coming in at that rate would require some additional conversation, as Power 5 schools are expected to be pro rata, assuming Fox and ESPN agree on that. For schools such as UConn and San Diego State, the tenor of that television payout conversation is expected to be different. The question for the other three corner schools is the same one Colorado face. Do they wait and see what kind of television contract the Pac-12 commissioner, George Kliavkoff, can secure? Logic and traditionally conservative presidential leadership would dictate that. But the conversation could go in a whole new direction with Colorado's decision. Who else could join the Big 12? The biggest variable for potential additions will be what the Pac-12 can come up with in its upcoming television deal. It's difficult to quantify how Colorado actually leaving, as opposed to months of speculation about leaving, will impact CEOs and boards around the Pac-12. The protracted process of landing a television deal becomes more complicated, not less with the Buffaloes gone, as there is a visceral power to making the move as opposed to discussing it. It's inertia, it's momentum, as we've discussed at Peek Around the Corner. Back to the article. Does this clear the way for others to follow? We'll find out soon. as more treading water amid the television negotiations pretends more anxiety and only increase flight risk. Beautiful writing by Pete Thamel of ESPN. No matter what these presidents say publicly, they are committed until they are not. That's the undefeated truism of realignment, and I hope a lot of people have learned their lesson through this saga. Overreacting to presidents saying that we're committed to such and such conference. I hope people have learned their lesson. It sounds like there's been a lot of people out there saying a lot of things, and this has been their first rodeo here in the PATC community. It is not our first rodeo. University leadership is generally risk adverse, which is why Colorado, even before full clarity on the Pac-12 television deal emerged, is striking as antithetical to how schools typically operate. Have they opened the door for others? It's the biggest question looming over the landscape in college sports right now. The other Big 12 target that has undergone serious vetting is Connecticut. There's been significant conversation between the sides, and Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark's steadfast belief in the market, the donor support in college basketball being undervalued would align with the Huskies coming aboard. There's also a belief UConn football has turned the corner under Jim Mora after a 6-7 bowl season in 2022. It's uncertain, however, were the internal support among Big 12 membership to invite UConn to join a league that's anchored by football forward schools in the Texas footprint stretching north. For UConn, the monetary difference, even at a reduced rate initially, would appear to be too much to resist. The 11 Big East schools get in the neighborhood of $4 million annually in television money. San Diego State is believed to be wedged in the Mountain West for the next 2 years, as they would owe a $34 million exit fee to leave before then. There's been modest contact between SDSU and the Big 12, but not to the level of UConn. Neither San Diego State nor the Big 12 has shown much interest in each other so far. Could that change? Could that change? The Big 12's best strategy may be patience. If the Pac-12 rallies and keep things intact, the Big 12 could wait to see how the ACC shakes out in the upcoming seasons, with Florida State and Clemson sending smoke signals of their unhappiness that could prompt other ACC schools to peak west, to peak west to the Big 12 if the ACC has a major shakeup. There's significant leverage advantage that Yormark has gained with Colorado coming to the Big 12's way. We talked about it on our live show last night. Now Yormark has more leverage than ever. They're operating from a position of strength, the Big 12. What will the Pac-12 do? It's too early to say how much urgency it will show to add a 10th member. The conventional wisdom as it would quickly add San Diego State, as that's long been the internal assumption within the league, but the timing on the potential move is in flux after San Diego State's muddled attempt to put off the exit fee increase via extension at the June 30 deadline. If San Diego State wanted to leave for the Pac-12 and play there in 2024, again, it would cost San Diego State $34 million in exit fees. That's giant money for a school in its budget range. There's no guarantee it would get a full share of whatever the Pac-12 media deal becomes. So the Aztecs may have to wait an extra year until 2025 that the Pac-12 extends an invitation, as other Pac-12 schools wouldn't be eager to cover the tab. Kliavkoff reiterated at the Pac-12 Media Day that the preference has always been to get a media deal first, then expand. Does Colorado's move change that batting order? As for what the league needs to do and who the league will add, it's important to follow a simple line of logic. Now, this is absolutely true from Pete Thamel. This is a simple line of logic. What would Oregon and Washington want? Kliavkoff, I hope you're reading this Pete Thamel article. This is the simple logic you have to follow. The Pac-12 is veering towards a precarious place where other leagues in flux over the past generation have been. The ambitions of the league's clear bell cows colliding with what would work best for the league as a whole in the long term. Beautiful writing. This simple solution for the Pac-12 would be able to add San Diego State, then explore a few other brands to plant seeds and to grow as a 12-team conference. SMU has been visited by the league, by George Kliavkoff in public during a basketball game, and has indicated it would open up its wallet as an incentive. But even if SMU came for a giant discount for a few years, is that really in the best short-term interest of Oregon and Washington? The Dallas area isn't a top-tier recruiting priority, and there's the travel expense for shipping teams, especially in non-revenue sports that far away. The priority of Oregon and Washington will be to make as much money as possible, and adding teams usually means the pie being sliced more ways. It's no secret. Oregon and Washington harbor ambitions of getting to the Big Ten, where the payouts for full-share members are nearly double what the Pac-12 will bring in, and discount slices, revenue slices for Oregon and Washington to the Big Ten is definitely still going to be more than what they're going to get in the Pac-12. It's uncertain where the eyes of the Big Ten could turn to Washington and Oregon and Washington. They'd likely go for a partial share, but the Big Ten presidents and athletic directors weren't eager to add them when former Commissioner Kevin Warren made a late push to get an additional television deal via streaming partner last year. It's likely they'll end up there eventually. It's likely Oregon and Washington will get to the Big Ten eventually within the next 5 years, as we've been reporting since day one on this channel. But the tricky variable is when that would happen. It's all about the timing. USC also made it known upon joining the Big Ten they didn't want to share the Los Angeles recruiting market with anyone else on the West Coast. Why give up the biggest competitive advantages of joining the Big Ten, the vastly superior finances being flexed to the rich Southern California recruiting base? Why pay more foxes to come into the hen house? Well, I'm going to answer that at the end of this article. So Washington and Oregon have to keep winning and waiting, as eventually there would be another round of realignment. Since USC and UCLA joined, they're already a new Big Ten commissioner, Tony Petitti, and USC's athletic director, Mike Bowen, has resigned. For the long haul, it would make sense for the Pac-12 to add San Diego State and SMU and perhaps a growth property like UNLV, Colorado State, or Fresno State for their markets, or Boise State for their consistent football success and strong brand. Bigger is safer, but that's going to clash with the short-term goals of Oregon and Washington. Again, beautiful writing by Pete Thamel of ESPN. A 9-team league would appear vulnerable, but any strategy that alienates Oregon and Washington wouldn't make sense either. And finally, in this article, when Yormark maneuvered to open up the Big 12 negotiations early with Fox and ESPN, jumping the line a year early as the Big 12 deal wasn't expiring until after 2024, he recognized the value of the stability, the visibility that's allowed the Big 12 to push forward and grow as they closed in on the data deal, announced the strategy in Mexico, and generally pushed forward in the wake of Oklahoma and Texas leaving. Finally, more importantly, Yormark move condensed the market for both television windows and available money at the Bears' time in the media. That's a maneuver that could ultimately be viewed as a pivot point in college landscape, with this Colorado move being the first tangible signs of its significance. And on October 30, 2022, episode 83 of College Football's Peek Around the Corner, we celebrated the move that Yormark did. We said it was a home run, it was a grand slam, and now the Pac-12 is going to have a difficult time getting a media deal that will satisfy all the schools, especially when it comes to visibility and exposure. And it's turned out exactly that way. Yormark hit the grand slam on October 30th, 2022. And let me get back to the hen houses and the foxes and everything else that Pete Thamel was talking about. Yeah, it's true. USC will not want an Oregon and Washington to be added in at this time in the Big Ten. And we don't know if the timing is going to work. We talked about an earlier episode today and live shows throughout the last months. Oregon and Washington. It could be within the next 5 months. It could be within the next 5 years, but it's going to happen. But when we're talking about the great recruiting grounds of the West Coast, in USC and UCLA being able to flex their muscles now with all that money coming in, why would they want other schools like Oregon and Washington to be added to the Big Ten? I'm going to flip that on its side. I'm going to ask you this question, PATC community. Why would Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Wisconsin, all those big-time football brand schools in the Big Ten, why would they want USC and UCLA to have all that landscape, to have all those hens in the hen house when they are the main foxes out in the West Coast? Why would they want that? Having Oregon and Washington come into the Big Ten now makes it just a little bit more difficult for USC and UCLA to compete at the levels of the Buckeyes, the Wolverines, the Nittany Lions, the Badgers. Right? Am I wrong? Put down how wrong I am in the comment section below the video. Again, a peek around the corner. Next 5 months, next 5 years. Washington and Oregon, we've told you over and over again, we have a very strong opinion due to the sources, the information we have gathered since day one, that Oregon and Washington are going to become Big Ten members of the Big Ten Conference. It's all about the timing. When is it going to happen? It could happen 4 or 5 years from now. It could happen 4 or 5 weeks from now. Stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner as we follow this story. Pete Thamel, the ripple effects, the potential ripple effects going across college football landscape with the simple move of Colorado, a historic move of Colorado moving from the Pac-12 to the Big 12. It's a busy day. This is our 3rd episode. Stick with us here at Peek Around the Corner. Until next time, which is going to be sometime today, from all of us at PATC, to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.